My name is Peter Davison. I played the Fifth Doctor, and you're listening to the Five-ish Fangirls.
The tangents this week continue all the way to episode 220 of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. And we're here for Metallica. What else? Welcome everyone to... That's an inside joke. We'll get to that. Welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. So glad you could join us. And let's start off like we do over the virtual table and see who's joined us this week.
This is Brittany in Bethlehem.
This is Sally from Wisconsin.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Chrissy will be joining us as soon as Baby Wrangler, a.k.a. the husband, gets home.
A.k.a. Daddy.
Yes. Yeah. But in the meantime, well, on top of us here, we have a special guest joining us again for I don't know how many times he's been on the show.
We're not quite a baker's dozen yet.
Yeah, he's definitely our most prevalent guest.
Coming from you live in Rachel's living room.
Yeah, well, it's your living room too. Coming to you live from the other side of the wall, from where I'm sitting. I can hear him through Skype and then also through the wall. It's almost like being at work. The person in the cube next to me. It's my husband. Yes, it's my husband, Chauncey. Yay! Kermit the Frog whale.
Thanks for having me back. I'm glad to be here, and I can't wait to talk about this today.
Yeah, he's our subject matter expert.
Yes.
But first things first is we do need to do the news. Not a whole lot of news. And unfortunately, most of the news is 10 o'clock news.
Yeah.
Or good, like half of it's 10 o'clock news.
Mm-hmm.
So for anyone who grew up in the 90s, really, watching TV, actor Luke Perry has passed away at the age of 52. He was hospitalized last week at close to the end of February, and he passed away earlier today from a stroke, actually, which is terrible. But had been an actor for a long time, but he kind of jumped into fame being on Beverly Hills 90210. And then recently he has been on Riverdale.
The first thing I remember seeing him in is the movie of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but that's terrible. Strokes are awful. I have family members who have suffered strokes, and thankfully none of them took their life, but still it's just it's a serious health thing. It's
life changing.
Yeah it is. So that's too bad. And then also we actually missed this one because this was actually right before the Oscars, but Catherine Hellmond, who you may not know her immediately by name, but again, if you grew up watching TV in the 80s and 90s, she played Mona on Who's the Boss?
Mm-hmm. The lovable, sassy grandma.
Yes. She died February 23rd from complications of Alzheimer's. So, but yeah, so she obviously Who's the Boss was on 84 to 92. So right in that cross section of times when we would have been living our childhood in front of the TV. So obviously our thoughts and good wishes go to both of those actors' families and friends and all that. And thankfully their work lives on in DVDs and all the like. So, moving on, I haven't added to the show notes, but convention announcements. They were teasing Salt Lake Fan X with a certain golden lasso.
Yep.
And as much as I'm sure people would have loved for it to be Gal Gadot, she's a little busy, I think, and that probably quite expensive, actually. But the next best thing, actually, I don't want to say next best thing because it's still pretty awesome. Linda Carter,
Yes,
the original Wonder Woman.
Yes.
TV's Wonder Woman is going to be at Salt Lake Fan X. So
We're getting quite the guest list.
Yes.
Oh yes,
I couldn't think of the word for a second.
yeah. Like I need lots of money and a trip to Salt Lake. So I can meet Chrissy, of course. But
if anybody can crushing us some lottery numbers,
yes,
where all of us can make a road trip.
Yeah, it's like Chrissy and Clark Gregg, Chrissy, Clark Gregg, Chrissy, Clark Gregg.
It balances out.
Yeah. I'm sure Chrissy won't mind if I disappear and all she hears is just, and this voice going, Clark Gregg,
You need to bop in a bucket down by Artist Alley.
Meanwhile, Chrissy's getting on the horn. Hello, Salt Lake Security. She's my friend, but you might want to warn Clark Gregg. She's coming.
I can just picture that in my head right now.
Mm-hmm. Reputation precedes me. Our last bit of news, we just had the Oscars, but award season kind of is kicking off again. Although a lot of these are from last year, so it's still going. I don't know. Depends on how you want to look at it. But anyway, the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards, because we always like to, complain that the elite awards don't ever nominate the stuff we like, and then you get things like the People's Choice and the Kids' Choice, and we're like, yay! And we actually have to vote, which is even better. So things that we will likely vote for, or may have to toss a coin depending on the category. Favorite funny TV show, we have nominees like Fuller House. Favorite TV drama, a series of unfortunate events, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, Stranger Things. Which is kind of cool that those are Netflix.
I was going to say, half of those choices are Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, only a couple are cable.
Yeah.
Or non-cable.
Favorite reality show, unfortunately, the Masked Singer was not nominated, but we've got we've got American Ninja Warrior and Double Dare. I love that Double Dare got nominated. Spoiler alert, I totally voted for Double Dare.
You gotta give the love to some of your fellow
and in the same vein, favorite TV host, Double Dare with Liza Koshy and Mark Summers. Favorite male TV star, Neil Patrick Harris for a series of unfortunate events. Caleb McLaughlin, who plays Lucas in Stranger Things. That was kind of cool that he was the one that got nominated out of the boys. Favorite female TV star, Candace Cameron Bure for Fuller House. Millie Bobby Brown, obviously for Stranger Things. Favorite movie, this was tough vote. Infinity War, Black Panther, Mary Poppins Returns. I think I voted for Infinity War because duh.
Talk about an eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Yeah, really. Favorite movie actor, Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa, Chris Evans as Captain America, Chris Hemsworth as Thor. Favorite movie actress, Emily Blunt for Mary Poppins, Lupita Nyong'o as Nakia in Black Panther, Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow in Infinity War, Zoe Saldana for Gamora in Infinity War.
Yikes! If we thought favorite
This is
movie
like
was
the
bad.
complete opposite of the Oscars and all
Yeah.
those others. But I love that they have like they have your typical categories and then like some not so typical categories. So it's like they have favorite male actor, favorite female actor. They also have favorite superhero, which includes Chadwick Boseman, Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson.
I do wonder which
all
one
of them
Rachel's gonna
are
vote.
Marvel except for Jason Momoa for Aquaman.
Yeah, this is good. Oh. My prediction is there's probably going to be a tie in that superhero category.
Yeah, really. They have favorite butt kicker.
I love that.
Yeah.
Which they have Chris Pratt for Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, not for his portrayal of Peter Quill. Denai Guerra as Okoye in Black Panther. Emilia Clarke for Solo: A Star Wars Story. Michael B. Jordan was actually for Creed 2. Zoe Saldana again for Gamora in Infinity War. Favorite animated movie, Incredibles 2, Ralph Breaks the Internet, Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse.
I finally watched last night. So good.
And I watched it this past weekend. That was good.
Yeah. You see why I won an Oscar.
Yes.
Exactly.
You have favorite male voice from an animated movie, Benedict Cumberbatch for The Grinch. Shamik Moore for Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse. Female voice from an anime movie, Gal Gadot from Ralph Breaks the Internet. And Haley Steinfeld for Spider-Man and the Spider-Verse. They have a whole bunch of other categories like music and stuff, which I don't listen to modern music these days. Hence this week's topic. I do love one of their categories is how do you want to help? And
that is a great one.
Help people in need, help schools, help the environment, help animals, and help prevent bullying.
Cool.
So people can vote on how they want to do like charitable work, which is pretty cool. So
I wonder if they're going to do anything with that.
They might, whatever wins, they may do something to raise money for charities in that category. I don't know. That would be kind of cool if they did.
Yeah. Or maybe some more PSAs of how to get involved.
Yeah, maybe.
Who knows?
So, but that's it for the news. So we are in a new month. So book club update.
Yes, we have the poll up for next month. This month's book is Secret from Vault 13. And then the books for next month, your choices are Combat Magic, Molten Heart, Scratch Man by Tom Baker, and then the Target novelization of City of Death. So,
what a nice butler. He's so violent.
Yeah.
It's like my favorite. It's my favorite line from City of Death. It's so random. It's so poor, Doctor.
Yes.
All right. Next up, some feedback. We got this week some feedback from Sean, and it's quite lengthy because, of course, it's Oscar related, and Sean is our
guru.
Yeah, he's our film file. So, so he says regarding episode 219. Hello, ladies. Just wanted to drop a quick note. Your definition of quick is different than ours, Sean. With a couple of not so quick thoughts on your latest episode. He may mean quick about how fast it took him to type it.
I was gonna say that line doesn't make too much sense, Sean.
Yeah. So he says, so sad about Peter Tork, sigh. Random trivia, did you know that Jack Nicholson, yes, that Jack Nicholson was the writer and producer on the movie Head. Yes, I did know that.
Yes, that's what I thought.
But I did know
that's what I thought, but I wasn't 100% sure, so I kept my mouth shut because I couldn't verify because my Google was acting up when we were talking about that.
Yeah. The huge congratulations on the Oscar contest and beating the guys from Spark Up Madness. Thank you. So very proud of you guys. If I were allowed myself a fourth Doctor moment, I'd say something starkly like, "You're improving, Harry. Your mind is beginning to work. It's entirely due to my influence. And of course, you mustn't take any credit." But I know better than to go there. Your collective 14 matched my total in Mills, although we fell short of Glenn's woohoo. Look at me. I got 18. Thank you, Sean. And by the way, if you have not gone and watched it, Spark of Madness did do their river review of the movie that the Hat picked as my excuse. So they did review Inner Space, and not that I really expected them to be tortured with this particular movie, but they actually really, really liked it.
Hey,
so I will put a link to their video in the show notes. So
though I'm kind of dreading what they had in store for us if we hadn't have won.
Yeah, really. They should just be glad they got that Martin Short movie as opposed to the other one that was in the Hat, because then they probably would have been singing a different tune.
I remember which Martin Short one you were talking about. Yeah.
It's not that we really intended to torture them. It's just there was the potential for torture. But we made sure that there was a nice blend of not so torturous to probably torture movies in the Hat, and they just happened to get one that was not, it wasn't that bad. It was really 80s cheesy goodness,
right?
So it wasn't torture, it was cheese with that particular pick. So
we might have to sit and plot and plan for next year.
Yes, I mean, if that's the way they want to roll, we can totally, make sure that every single possibility is torturous. So
Rachel just bought from Goodwill Attack of the Giant Leeches on VHS.
Ooh.
I haven't seen that. But
I haven't either. But it was 50. It was like the VHS tapes at at least Goodwill near me are like 69 cents or something like that, and it was 50% off on top of that because it was first Saturday of the month. So I was like, this looks terrible. I was like, well, maybe if Spark of Madness is hard up for something to watch, you can watch Attack of the Giant Leeches.
We won't say too much more. You might be listening.
Yeah. Chrissy's here now. Yay!
I am here. Hello.
Yay. So continuing with Sean's feedback because it is long. Head versus heart is always a hard choice. I did my research and voted head this year, so did we. I got screwed on Bohemian Rhapsody, taking both sound categories of Black Panther, taking costume score and production design. Voted by heart on visual effects only to see First Man sneak in there. Grr. The only acting one I got wrong was Olivia Colman, which I think a lot of folks were shocked by. Not because she wasn't worthy. It was a fantastic performance. I did get my copy of The Favor. I just haven't watched it yet. But because so many people thought and assumed it was Glenn Close's year. Yes.
Yes.
But when you look back at Oscars history with awarding acting awards, they love British actors. Sometimes they love it when actors are playing real people. Sometimes they love it when those characters have some sort of disability. Again, a good chunk of the time because Eddie Redmayne won, but Benedict Cumberbatch was nominated for
I was
the
going to
Alan
say
Turing
wasn't
one,
that the years?
and he didn't win. So again, it's like we could try to apply logic, but it only takes you so far when it comes to the Oscars, I think. So under that light, Coleman's win for Queen Anne suddenly makes perfect sense as it checks the trifecta of tick boxes. In this case, apparently. So as to the challenge films, no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that one did come down to a coin flip. So we had Olivia Colman and Glenn Close tied. So
if the coin had
we're
gone
gonna blame
the
the
way,
coin.
we would have gotten that one right. So
well, that one I had to reflip because it landed dead center.
Yes,
the Kindle thing. So
even the coin didn't know.
Yeah.
So there. As to the challenge films, Inner Space, Krull, Highlander 2, Wild Wild West, Outlander are far too good to be truly bad movies. They're getting off easy with Inner Space. Yes, again, We went from the gamut of just cheesy to bad. So they happened to get cheesy. It was the hat. Blame it on the hat. So we actually had adapted screenplay right for Black Klansman. And fun note, one of the writers, Kevin Wilmot, is a professor at KU and has been a judge in a previous short film contest, which I have had a short film entry. So now you can say you're friends with someone who's had a short film judged by an Academy Award winner. How's that for a lame claim to fame? Al, we'll take it.
We'll take it. That's cool.
Hey, Chauncey and I went to college with actually Frank taught. Frank, I think, graduated before us, but I think we were students there when Frank was but there's a student that went to school with us in the same program, graduated same program, who works at Pixar, and whenever Pixar wins an Oscar, anybody on the team, they get little miniature ones, and Frank has several of those. So, cool. So there's another lame claim to fame, is we went to college with someone who works at Pixar and has won several Oscars.
My lame claim to fame is I went to the same university as Patrick Rothfuss, and I bumped into him in the hall a few times.
There you go. Oh. He says, I'm glad this contest made the Oscars bearable for you guys. I hope perhaps this is just the beginning. We can only hope. Yep. And of course, film is subjective, but for what it's worth, there are only 3 serious contenders for Best Picture out of this bunch. Black Klansman is good, but simply too controversial. And no offense to Spike Lee, but the Academy just isn't ready to hand him the keys to the kingdom yet. That's unfortunately probably true. Vice wasn't as much fun or as good as it was made out to be. I would agree. It was just weird. The Favorite fits a lot of what Oscar looks for in Best Picture film. It's historical, it's lavish, and quite honestly, it's been had it been about a male leader, this might have been a different year altogether. A Star is Born is great, but it's the 4th time the story has been told, and there's also certain bias that it celebrates the music industry more than the movie industry. Well, yeah. Same for Bohemian Rhapsody. It is a musical biopic, and as much as I love Queen, it's pretty standard run-of-the-mill biopic. Yeah, that's true. But other than the occasional acting statue, those don't win Best Picture unless you're Amadeus. Not Ray, not Walk the Line, not Straight Outta Compton, not The Doors. The Bryan Singer flap didn't help. Notice how nobody thanked the film's director in any of the winning speeches. I didn't notice till after when people were pointing that out. It's like, oh yeah, oh well.
I was like, yeah, that was when I was like, what happened? Oh right, okay.
Yeah,
I totally forgot that he had been the director.
Which honestly, people after the fact, because of the whole Bryan Singer thing, the guy that won editing. One of the editing awards really probably deserved it because he was editing a movie without a director. And they had been directed by 2 different people. He's got shots from 2 different directors and no directors sitting there helping edit, which they normally do. So really, anyone who got editing awards for Bohemian Rhapsody probably deserves it.
Basically, that editor was probably Brian May's reaction when Freddie said for Bohemian Rhapsody, here's where the opera section comes in, darling.
Yeah.
There you go. Have fun editing.
So he said, so that brings it down to those 3, Black Panther, Green Book, and Roma. Someone once said as a joke that Hollywood is full of people who want to make the next Schindler's List, yet spend their days greenlighting Speed 2 Cruise Control.
It's because they like money.
That is very true.
Why do you think there's so many Transformers movies?
Probably.
They've all got to find their kids' shoes.
Yes.
Or Fast and Furious. Well, Fast and Furious, they I haven't actually seen them, but its fan base, they contend like there's a story there, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah, but there's also like 5 million of them, so they keep making them.
That too.
So. As good as Black Panther is, as well made as it is, as solid of filmmaking as is on display, it is 1, a comic book movie, and sci-fi fantasy action films simply do not fare well with awards, which has been our complaint this entire podcast. 2, it features a plot to arm blacks around the world to rise up against white suppressors, something those old white men in Hollywood were probably a smidge uncomfortable with. Again, true. probably. And 3, it made bajillions of dollars. Oscar-like films that do well, but not that well. After all, if everyone likes it, it's not exclusive in art house, right? Roma has strikes against it. Being a Netflix production, Hollywood is really uncomfortable biting the hand that feeds them with theaters by celebrating something people can watch at home, which that's a whole other controversy we could get into some other time with the whole Netflix against Steven Spielberg thing, but we're not going to get into that now.
I saw that.
Yeah. 2, it's such an overwhelming favorite for Best Foreign Film. There's almost no way the Academy would bestow Best Picture on it, which is why we never considered voting for it. Which leaves Green Book. For all the controversy around it, it's the chauffeur's son who wrote the story and the musician's family who claim it's just a pack of lies. It's actually a safe bet for the Academy. I disagree with everyone complaining about the racism inherent in the story and simply don't get the animosity toward it, which I still haven't seen it. So it's a movie, guys. It's very much worth watching. Is it groundbreaking? Nope. Is it driving Miss Daisy? Pretty much, which is what we said last week. Was it highly entertaining? Yes, it was. Was it a feel-good film? Yelp. Was it the best of the selected films? Again, subjective. The Academy and I really agree on what is best. Agreed. Very good point, Sean. Very, very good points. Ooh, excuse me. And now we start over again. Anything that comes out now is up for grabs, possible. Alrighty. Oh, thank you, Sean, for the feedback.
Thank you, Sean.
Yep. Alrighty then. So let's move on to this week's topic and the reason that Chauncey is here. As he is going to be our subject matter expert, although I do have quite a bit of notes. I was scouring the internet, writing down dates and sorts of things. So, in celebration, I guess, of the show we're attending next week, and actually, this actually works out kind of well because this year also makes the 20th anniversary of S&M. So, and
she should explain what S&M is for people.
We will, yeah.
Otherwise, it sounds kind of weird.
Yeah. We should probably put a little bit of a disclaimer. Well, we always try to keep this family friendly. Some of the titles of things are maybe not the most child friendly. So just a little warning that this is a bit on the adult side as far as subject matter. So, because we're talking heavy metal. So, but then actually, because we're recording this March 4th, March 7th, back in 1999, so 20 years ago, was proclaimed official Metallica Day in San Francisco. So in a couple days will be the 20th anniversary of Metallica Day in San Francisco. So this actually works out well.
Well, I was also going to say congratulations. I mean, you're recording this today on March 4th. It is Jason Newsted's birthday today.
Serendipity. I love
He's their
how
old
these
bass
things,
player.
Yes, I love how these things work out when we don't even try. And then on top of all that, this time next week, Chauncey and I will be in downtown Indianapolis seeing said band.
And actually, Metallica hits the stage in less than an hour and a half in Wichita, Kansas, right tonight.
Yeah. Oh, so yes, if you have not figured it out by now, our topic this week is Metallica.
Woo!
Chauncey's favorite band in the entire world, and over the almost 11 years that we've been together, he has slowly converted me. It has taken
really
a long.
surprising, actually.
It's taken a long time for me to get here. I'm still not quite the metalhead that he is, but I definitely can go now and am excited, and can sing along with more than just the chorus of Enter Sandman, which is the way it was the first time I ever saw Metallica. Because we started dating May of 2008, and then he took me to see Metallica for my first show in October of that year, and he'd been trying to teach me all of the all of the Metallica stuff, and I really just was not having it. But
Yeah, she was not interested.
Not really. I was like, I really like this guy, and we're probably going to get married. So, and this is something he's very excited about. It's important to him, and therefore I agreed to go. We went all the way to Columbus, Ohio, for my first Metallica show. And the entire time I was sitting there in my seat, going, "When are they going to play that one song I know?" If you don't know, Enter Sandman is Metallica's last show on their set list, so I had to wait the entire show to hear the one song I know.
Well, they play at every show, but yeah, usually it's towards the end.
Yeah, it's usually towards the end. So now I'm getting ready to see Metallica for the fourth time since we've been together. The third time in less than 18 months. Or
So,
less than 18 months, because it was summer of 2017 that we saw them, so slightly under 2 years that we saw them back to back.
Yeah, I remember what you said though. As far as like early on, I tried to show you like the history of Metallica and their music and everything, and you were not interested. But like you actually have become a fan, and I haven't really.
Oh yeah.
Push that. What made you sort of get into Metallica?
I think you just wore me down.
You really? You think so? That sounds terrible. I'm sorry.
It does. I think it was one of those where I think it just took me time to kind of ease into it. You know, it's kind of like a lobster in a pot of water.
So you're telling everyone that I boiled you alive.
But I liked it. I mean, I'm sitting here wearing a Metallica t-shirt that I bought with my own money.
As the lobster
That's
melted butter all over herself. Like, yes.
I'm going to write a song about that now. Yeah, that's boiled alive.
Honestly, I don't know. It wasn't a conscious thing. It was just, I think, because you listen to them all of the time, and I think I heard enough of the catalog that I started hearing things that I actually enjoyed. And now I've listened to the entire Metallica catalog and know what albums I like, what albums I don't like, what songs I do like. You know, starting out, S&M was really the only thing that I could tolerate listening to, and that was really because it was so different sounding, because it's Metallica teaming up with the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra, where they did a show with all their music with orchestra. So
that's a cool album.
It is. It's very cool. I mean, it's the one I go to when I want to listen to a full Metallica album. It's S&M, just because it sounds really cool, and their music actually translated really well to full orchestration.
Oh yes.
So you wouldn't think so, but you go and listen to it. You can listen to the concert. It's a live album, or you can actually watch it. Chauncey's got it on DVD, but there's versions of it up on YouTube. It's not the best quality as far as visuals, because it's from 20 years ago. So the video resolution has gotten a little better since then. They're gonna have to like
Michael Kamen, the director of the San Francisco Symphony. He's like the one that actually started that whole ball rolling.
Yeah. Which Michael Kamen in himself was a very successful film music writer. He did the music for Mr. Holland's Opus and a bunch of other films. And actually, I have somewhat of a personal connection to Michael Kamen. Unfortunately, he's passed. He passed in 2003. But he, the year after I graduated high school, I went back to my high school, and for the marching band season that year, I was essentially free labor, helping out. There was an arrangement I had to make sure to cover the costs for when I was in marching band my senior year. I agreed to come back and work for nothing. But it just so happened that the year after I graduated, the music that they used for the marching band show that year was music from Michael Kamen, where it is the album. Oh crap! What's the name of it? I have it too. I still have it in front of me. It's I'll have to look it up. It's a CD I have. It's like this music, and then it's actually the music from Mr. Holland's Opus is the rest of the CD. But my high school used his music for their marching band show that year, and then they ended up winning the national championship that year. And by the power of the internet, I went to Michael Kamen's website at the time and actually emailed him to thank him for letting them use his music, because they always have to have the rights to any music that they use. And he actually emailed me back and said, "You're totally welcome." Unfortunately, I don't have that email anymore because it's an old email address that got hacked. So I don't have that email anymore, which really sucks, especially because he's no longer with us. But it was really funny because when Chauncey showed me S&M for the first time, it's like, Michael Kamen. I'm like, I know him. Marching band. Although Chauncey has not seen Mr. Holland's Opus, though, so you need to get on that.
Put that on your list.
Yep.
I was just gonna say,
he loves Dead Poet Society. It's kind of in the same vein, so
more or less, yeah. I was just gonna say, like, you were saying you wouldn't think Metallica and symphonic orchestra would go together, but I have one up. So there is a CD that's lullaby renditions of Metallica. Our library owns it, and I was just like, yeah, they have them for a bunch of different bands, but yeah, they have music that you can put on while your child is sleeping, and there's one for Metallica. So there's another one that's like, doesn't seem like it should work, but it probably does.
The comedian Jim Brewer talks about the fact that like all the guys in Metallica are over 50 now, and except for one of them. Well, actually, I think he is too. So they all have kids, and he was talking about how they have to do nursery rhymes and sing, sing to their kids and stuff. So he has a band on stage when he does this comedy, and he's like singing "Mary Had a Little Lamb," but all heavy metal and stuff. It's so funny.
Well, and then there's that one like tribute band, Beatallica, where they do Metallica and Beatles songs.
Oh,
they make music, but it's all like Beatles songs, like in the style of Metallica.
Or vice versa, they'll do Metallica songs in the style of the Beatles.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's kind of funny. So, yeah, it's like if you look at Metallica and the type of things that they do, it's like, yeah, they're a heavy metal band, but if you see them in concert, it's exactly what you would expect from a heavy metal concert. I mean, it's loud. There's pyro and all sorts of crazy stuff. There's people mosh pitting, which I do not recommend. We could talk about the Chicago show in a bit.
I was going to say, from experience, Rachel?
Yes, unfortunately.
Yes.
Oh my.
Yeah.
She was not having it. I'll say that.
I was not having it. I was fine when I was here and they were over there, but when they started getting closer and I started getting stepped on,
Yes.
and like knocked to the ground, I was done. So mosh at your, or be near moshers at your own at your own peril, I guess. But like over the course of Metallica's career, and obviously they're still going because we're seeing them next week. But I mean, they always try to find ways to do something different that doesn't necessarily scream heavy metal band. Like they have Metallica nights at the San Francisco Giants, which is the baseball team in San Francisco. They performed on the Grammys several years ago with like acclaimed Chinese pianist Lang Lang. Their song One. They performed closing ceremony at BlizzCon one year. They did their own 3D concert film that came out in 2013, which was really weird. They did a gig called Freeze 'Em All in Antarctica. So they are the first band to play on all 7 continents.
Wow.
So it's like none of, you wouldn't think, heavy metal band concert in Antarctica, but they did.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, that you have the phrase that's real metal. I mean, playing a concert in Antarctica, it's metal.
Yeah.
It's like it just kind of seems like
Well,
metal
really
bands
funny.
they do that kind of stuff.
The coverage of the Antarctica show, Freeze 'Em All, like there's a science station that they were at, and scientists were like, you can't play with like your PA and your guitar amps because it's a protected area and the penguins will be disturbed. So they did what's called a electronic disco, which is just like a scenario where everyone in the show wears headphones, and it's like a concept developed in the 80s. So then they have a mix board and everything, but like if you take the headphones off, it just sounds like nothing because they're just strumming instruments, but it's not electronic. But if you put the headphones on, you can actually hear the full concert.
Wow.
Ah.
Yeah.
Which you can watch it. There's video of it. So
Yeah.
I think the entire concert is up online. It's not a full like Metallica show. It's not like 2 hours plus. It's like 45 minutes or something like that. But still, Metallica.
Still, they did it.
If you ever get the trivia question, what was the quietest Metallica show? You say it's the one down in Antarctica.
Do not disturb the penguins.
Penguins. I was just about to say, were there any penguins headbanging?
That would have been awesome, honestly.
Oh, we've seen GIFs out there of penguins like jumping up and down. They kind of look like they're headbanging.
The metal penguins gift. Yeah.
Have their own little
Heavy
mosh
metal
pit.
penguin. That needs
So-
to be a thing now.
So Chauncey, as our resident expert, why don't you give a little background on, I guess, how far back do you and Metallica go?
Mhm.
Me and Metallica only until 1997. Actually, I should say before that, like I had brief interactions with the band. I recall when I was like, I was 5 years old, and my mom and dad pulled over on the side of the road on our way up in our lake cottage in Michigan, and we were just going up for a weekend. And they were Metallica was playing at a place called Valdu Lakes, and my parents pulled over because there were beer cans strewn everywhere all over this parking lot. And my mom's like, "Hey, we should stop and like collect all those beer cans because they're worth 10 cents a piece, and they're recycling in Michigan." So like, they got trash bags, and Taylor, my brother, and we just sat in the car and listened to the music, just kind of blaring over the the horizon, and I think they cleaned up the parking lot and made like $86 or something like that.
Wow.
That's a lot of beer.
Yep.
And then
that was quite a chunk of change.
Yeah. And
the
then I
late 80s.
recall on MTV hearing him quite a bit, like the name Metallica, and I just thought that was a clever name. I just was like, what is Metallica? I remember my cousin saying, oh, it's just a band. And then around 97, as an angsty teenager, I discovered him on Napster. And literally on Napster, I was like, what is this? And I started listening. I was into it after that. I totally violated, what we'll probably talk about later, like what Lars did.
Lars is so disappointed in you.
Oh, no. It's and then the S&M film for the Symphony of Metallica thing came out, and my parents, I think, were challenging my brother and I, because we were both like doing a lot of creative things, but they were both kind of like, what else can you guys do? Because like they had some friends that like their kid was like a musician, and he was like a math whiz and all this stuff, and I remember them putting that in front of us, just kind of like, man, he's like, that guy's nuts. And like, so Taylor and I, we got home and we started actually getting into guitar because of our cousin, and we just went wild with getting into music, and Metallica was sort of that guiding band. Their music is so hard.
Britney's heat's on.
Sorry.
That's
sorry.
okay. You're covered in snow. You need heat. Just now we know what that sound is. Whenever you hear that, it's because Britney's heat's kicked on.
Oh, gotcha.
It happens.
She's not
Anyway.
freezing.
Well, it's freezing in Indy right now.
Oh, it's so cold.
Anyway, their music is basically guitar driven. Like, it's not vocal driven like a lot of musicians are, and so it's very creative guitar work. And when my brother and I got into guitar, that was the most challenging music we could find to learn. It was also very exciting to play. And you'll find that there are a lot of fans of Metallica that just got into them because they are just they managed to channel a lot of attitude into the way they play guitar, and it's not just loud, it's just very clever, and then there's a lot of emotion involved in how they play the guitar. So, and it's not typical emotion. A lot of times guitarists play with like kind of like, calming sounds or like love type music. Metallica managed to put like, anger and apathy and attitude into playing guitar, and as a teenager that resonates with kids that get into music. So I don't know, I guess that's where I kind of got connected with them.
I'm just glad they're not screamers. That's my issue with a lot of metal, is the ones that just scream. It's like Metallica actually sings.
Yes.
Rachel actually said I was a metalhead earlier. I'm not really a metalhead. Metallica is really the only metal band I listen to. And then if Metallica like has a supporting act like Volbeat, or I don't know, they've had related bands like Megadeth and things like that have a history with Metallica.
Megadeth.
Yeah, I like that stuff too. And they're, most of the time they're kind of derivative of one another, so you can kind of pick up on.
Well, I mean, Megadeth essentially is a kind of a spin-off of Metallica. It's a Dave. So.
Yeah, they're.
Even though
the guy that started Metallica actually got fired by Metallica.
Yeah, Dave Mustaine, and then went off to found Megadeth, and their relationship is not. They're civil at this point because of the Big Four concerts. They kind of have to be, at least somewhat civil to each other. So, but at their relationship, I think with Jason is more amicable. I think between the two of them. From what it looks like to me, at least. So, although when Jason left, it wasn't on that friendly of terms either. So,
yeah, so
Metallica's had a somewhat of a rotating cast of characters. Lars has been the consistent one. Lars and James have been the consistent ones.
If you compare them to the Beatles, it's like the only reason I say that is because they've been, as an American garage band, they've been pretty consistent, like the Beatles were for about 10 years. But James and Lars are kind of like the Lennon and McCartney duo of Metallica. And then their bass player, their first one, Cliff Burton, he was killed in a bus accident in '86. And then Jason Newsted came in, and it's his birthday today. and he was there till the late '90s, and then he quit, just due to the fact that the band was in a really unhealthy place, mentally, commercially, so on and so forth. And then they about broke up in the early 2000s, and then they got back together, and they had a therapist actually in session with them, from 2002 until 2003 or so, and then they came out with this album called Saint Anger, which a lot of people don't like, but
I don't. It's my least favorite.
Most Metallica fans that were like with them before and after really like Saint Anger because it communicates a lot of like the fact that they almost broke up, but they kind of came up like a phoenix, they kind of came back, and then all of a sudden they started returning to their roots and playing more like metal music, because in the 90s they were playing like more like alternative style music like you would see on the radio. So anyway, the thing about Metallica is like they early on they were, for the like a third of their career, have been a heavy metal band, and then like in the early 90s they released a thing called the Black Album, and that was really a big departure from thrash metal music, and they kind of went more like pop radio, because up until then the radio had basically shunned them. They hadn't been on the radio at all, and that's why a lot of people liked them, is because they were like, this is my band, they're not mainstream, and I can listen to them and I can go to the shows, and it's a fringe kind of thing. It's a headbangers ball, if you will, because that's what the show became on MTV, is the headbangers ball. It's a cultural thing. And then in the 90s they became more sort of popular with the Black Album, which that album wasn't meant to be such a big deal, but it became a big deal. It sold so much and grew their audience so fast that
Enter Sandman.
Yeah.
Yep.
That one song just took them off. And there's video of them playing in after the Soviet Union fell and it just basically became Russia, I guess, or USSR. One of the record companies had made a deal with that country and set up a Monsters of Rock concert, and had like Guns N' Roses and Metallica and Motley Crue and like a few other bands play, but Metallica like headlined. And I mean, we're talking a country that had just fallen apart, and freedom was now a possibility, and like they just put it on an airfield, and like they didn't have much security, so like 1.5 million people showed up. So it's like this massive amount of people in this giant metal concert. It's a historical moment in terms of like just music history, because there's interviews of like James Hetfield, the lead singer of Metallica, talking about how he saw like Soviet soldiers like down in front, like just kind of with their guns and standing there, and the band the show's happening, and then later on they're just, they're like, screw this, and they put the gun on the ground, they take their uniform off, and they're dancing around in the stage so they could literally witness like fall of the Soviet Union.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that I definitely believe, because there was I don't know, I saw an article a little bit ago about how they would smuggle Western rock music into the Soviet Union, and they'd like print it on make records out of old X-rays and stuff, and it's like that was like nobody wanted Soviet music. They all wanted whatever was coming out of England and America and Europe and all that, and rock, heavy metal was the top things that they all loved.
It's just amazing to me that
believe that.
this little garage band in San Francisco is now just like, I mean, they're gigantic. It's crazy.
Yeah, now they're let's see, what year was it? 04? No, 2009. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, I'm tongue-in-cheek, but then not. I've got a little bone to pick with Jan Wenner about some of the people he's let in before others.
Yeah.
Topic for another conversation.
Yeah.
Even
There's some
Metallica is
bands-
kind of like,
Yeah.
what's going on here? Because like, I think one of their favorite bands of all time is Deep Purple, and Deep Purple's not even in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yes. I mean, I'm glad Metallica's in, don't get me wrong, but it's just like, okay, but let's put also some of their influence bands, if they aren't in the Hall of Fame,
Yeah.
bring them in with them, please.
Yeah. Or, even some artists that don't necessarily scream, rock and roll, but have been a big part of the music industry and very influential, like Weird Al.
Yes. And Johnny Rivers. Sorry, but like I said, topic for next down the road.
Next round of inductions come around.
Yes. If we had the keys to the caddy for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, who would we induct?
Yeah.
Topic.
There's a topic for a show.
Yes, exactly.
We'll put that on the docket.
Yes.
One of the things I'll say about Metallica that's really cool about them, that's a departure from typical metal music, is that like most of their songs are either written in an ambiguous way where you can't tell exactly what it's about. So that the whole point is to bring your own meaning to it. But early on, there's quite a bit of their songs where you know what it's about, but it's not about what typical metal bands would write about. It's like they'll take an old book from the 1920s, like Johnny Got His Gun, and write a song about a book from the 1920s. Or they'll take Cthulhu from
H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah, they'll take H.P. Lovecraft and they'll write a song about it and make it a metal song.
Isn't that Mama's favorite?
Yeah, that was actually the first song I ever played on guitar was Call of Cthulhu, and then like I had no idea what it was about, but then because there's no singing in it, it's just the guitar, and they just named it that. And my grandma was like, "Oh, I love that song," and she's like, "Where'd you learn that?" I said, "It's from Metallica." So she misheard me, and she said, "Metallics?" And she's like, I love that song from the Metallics. got a good tone to it. Play that one.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Sounds like a
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, how many, especially in sci-fi and fantasy, just how many heavy metal fans there are, and just because there's also the fantasy metal, I guess is what they call it, or something like that. Like there's
and then
the
other,
sword and sorcery metal.
Yeah. Well, and then there are other bands that have been influenced by fantasy and stuff like Led Zeppelin.
Yep.
So
Iron Maiden quasi.
Yeah.
I love the fact that with Led Zeppelin, like Jimmy Page and Robert Plant had this vision that like the band had to have an image, because rock and roll bands generally have an image, but their image was that they came down from the mountain one day, and that was it. That was the image, and they never really put a backstory to anything. They just put a lot of fluff out in front so people would make assumptions, and then like put little clues in their interviews and things, and people would be like, "This band is mysterious," And back then the internet didn't exist, so it really was mysterious.
And then a couple nods to J.R.R. Tolkien, Misty Depths of Mordor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gollum came and stole my girl. It's like,
Yeah.
Exactly. Metallica has like this like kind of bizarre. They have like one foot in the metal world, and then they have this one other foot in like this just silly. I don't know what you'd call it, like silly meme world, or maybe not memes, but like silly like pop culture world. Like they're not fully committed to being like Slayer, where they're like a scary demonic metal band. It's not even close. It's very different, and it's hard to describe that to people that don't like metal music, because they just like it's all the same. That's what they'll say.
and it works.
Yeah.
It works for them.
It does.
Which is why I probably came to the metal side in this case. So just because it's not the loud, scary, devil. Apocalyptic.
If somebody
type
gave me
music.
two choices, death metal or Metallica, I'm going Metallica. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to worry about death metal. Really with Metallica.
By the way, has anyone heard of baby metal?
I
I have.
Yeah. The Japanese.
I've heard it.
I'm sure. Say Chrissy's our anime person, so if anyone's heard of
Yes,
anything that comes out
Jared,
of
yes, baby metal
Yeah.
is Jared. Okay, so when Jared and I started dating, and he was music and stuff and everything, and I don't know, I guess you kind of have to know Jared or have met him. So like when he's bringing out all his metal music and he does like we're gonna go see Within Temptation next week. That's one of his favorite bands. Anyway, and so I'm like, I had no idea that you were into this kind of stuff. But yeah, baby metal was definitely on the list. They're a big Japan or Korea. I want to say Japan.
Japan. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if we were gonna talk about it, I'd have Jared come in and give his spiel about all of it. But yeah, I have heard of it and heard them as well.
So to me, baby metal is like it's like right on the nose on what Metallica is, which is they sound and kind of look like metal, but like if you really look at it, it's kind of tongue in cheek. Like it's not quite metal, because like baby metal is like 3 Japanese like girls that are like dressed up like kind of aggressive, but they're also like wearing tutus, and they're dancing to metal music and making all these cute like things, but then there's like screaming and there's guitar. It's tongue in cheek. It's not really meant to be taken seriously.
And it's I mean, you look at it and you're just kind of like, it's Japan.
Yeah.
Metallica's not quite
There's
that
just-
tongue in cheek, but like that's what
Right.
I guess I'm getting to.
Yeah, I understand totally.
But there's also some I would say realism to Metallica as far as them being like the culture that they represent, because they, they're really amazing musicians, and they put a lot of heart into their stuff, and there's some style to them. Like I don't know what's up with James Hetfield, but over his life, his hair has changed so much. But he's basically been like this either this like long-haired, scary metal guy.
Well, they all had like mullets when they first started, because it was the 80s, and then in like the 90s going into really the early 2000s, because if you watch S&M, James has got like this, it's long, but it's not a mullet. But then his like facial hair, he had like this goatee beard thing that was very full and kind of long. I like to call it James Hetfield's goat phase, because he kind of looks like a mountain goat.
It's just a touch scary if he got the scowl just right.
Yeah.
And then he kind of goes.
You
He
do want
goes a
to
little
beat
bit
him down the
rockabilly.
dark alley?
Yeah, and it's like, and then Lars has been going bald since they started for a while there. I just wanted to like tackle Lars with a electric razor and just be like, just shave it off, dude. Quit trying to act like you got hair, because he was going bald on top and he was still trying to grow what would grow in the back. I'm like, Lars, you're going bald, just shave it, dude.
Buzz,
And then
Just
Kirk,
own it.
Yeah.
Well,
and then Kirk looks exactly the same, except his hair is getting a bit more gray. But it's like James has really had like the biggest change, like hair and facial hair, and then the tattoos, which he didn't have the tattoos starting out. He didn't really start getting the tattoos until after he caught himself on fire, right?
He didn't start actually getting them until way later, like around 2008 or 9, like when the Death Magnetic album came out. Then he started really getting tattoos.
Yeah. But didn't he got he got some after he set himself on fire that did.
Yeah, he just got like a couple, but then he didn't get them again for a while, and then all of a sudden around like 2008, he just started like coating his arms, and
Yeah.
But
1992, they were 1992 they were touring with Guns N' Roses.
Say no more.
And
which actually I want to say something about that. So like they went to Freddie Mercury's tribute, right? So Freddie Mercury passed away, and they did this amazing collaboration show with like Brian May and everyone, and
Yep.
and Metallica performed Stone Cold Crazy.
Stone Cold Crazy.
Yes. Oh, they
Actually,
did
that was
such an
just
awesome
James.
job.
It was just James with Queen.
Yeah. So then, after all that was over, they were behind the stage. So after the show at for Queen, they were backstage, just kind of like hanging out with all the other bands, and Lars started, because Metallica had the Black Album come out. They were like on top of the world, and Guns N' Roses was also kind of on top of the world with their popularity at the time, since the early '90s, and Lars started going out to dinner with the Guns N' Roses people, and they all just came up with a business deal and said, let's do it together, because it would just be massive. Like, we would attract massive crowds and it'd really be good for our careers. But the call to Guns N' Roses just kind of like lazy. And Metallica had always been a road band because they'd never been played on the radio, so they couldn't be lazy. They were always very like hard workers. So there was a very like deep culture clash in terms of the two groups touring together. And like, you know, there was shows that Guns N' Roses would cancel that Metallica was like, seriously, you're canceling because of like hardly anything? And yeah, so then that ended that tour was when Metallica played in Montreal, Canada, and they were playing Fade to Black, and the pyro went up and set James Hetfield on fire.
Man. And it was probably Guns N' Roses pyro guy. So we got this covered.
Yeah.
I can just,
Oh boy.
I can kind of bet you dollars a case that that's probably what happened. Good spitball.
Well, so when Metallica just played the Grammys with Lady Gaga like a couple years ago, if you watch the behind the scenes of them rehearsing with Lady Gaga, it's so funny because she kind of walks away to go get a drink of water or something like that, and the Metallica guys are like all kind of staring at each other, and like there's a piece of tape on the ground, and like it says "Pyro, do not cross." So James starts playing Fade to Black and walks across the line, and then just goes, "Ah!" Like, everybody just laughing, and they're like, "Oh no, it's Montreal!" And then it fades out.
Oh no.
Like, you really have to know what was going on there to like pay attention why that was so funny.
Well, at least he's got a sense of humor about it.
No,
Yeah.
Most people probably wouldn't.
they have quite the sense of humor. If you really watch their behind the scenes stuff, they are hilarious.
Yeah, they are. They are pretty cool dudes. And not that we have firsthand experience with that, but we have secondary experience with that, because Chauncey's cousin and her husband just went and saw Metallica last month in North Carolina. And
Ironically, so did some of my cousins.
yeah,
Wow.
it actually got to meet Metallica. So
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. My cousin Joe, he lays drywall all day long. He like puts up drywall in the house, and he listens to Sirius XM radio, and he plays the Metallica Sirius XM almost all the time. And he entered into their phone competition, and he won their grand prize. And they flew him and his wife to North Carolina for the Raleigh show, and they got to meet him and escort him out to the stage. Just blew my mind. I couldn't believe it. I was vicariously living through them. They had a dollar bill in their back pocket, and they had Lars sign in, Kirk and Robert, and then Lars was like, "All right, defacing money," and he signed it.
And Chauncey's over here seething with jealousy.
Oh yeah.
well, Chauncey's got the dollar.
Yeah.
Ah.
Oh yeah. They
Even
gave
better.
me the dollar, and they, I was smiling ear to ear just hearing the stories about this.
I framed it for him. They got one of the guitar picks too, because the guitar picks they use at every show are unique to that show.
Oh, neat.
So they put the city on it, and it's got some design relevant to whatever tour it is. So they brought it back, the dollar and the guitar pick, and then we have a couple of guitar picks from when we saw them in Detroit. So we've got those. And and pictures from our experience. So we have not got to do the meet and greet yet, but when we saw the two shows, a couple summers ago, the Chicago show, which we went with Beth and Joe. If there's anybody who's as big a Metallica fan, if not bigger than Chauncey, it's Joe, his cousin's husband. But so they went with us to the show in Chicago where I got trampled on. Not fun. But then we saw them. We saw them again on that same tour. What, like a month later, if that, in Detroit, because we're crazy and have nothing better to do with our time. Plus, it was a slightly different opening act. They were touring with Avenged Sevenfold and Volbeat, but Volbeat was not at every show, so it was just Avenged Sevenfold and some local Chicago band that opened for them in Chicago. But Chauncey and I both had discovered Volbeat actually through James Hetfield. He had mentioned them. He discovered them and mentioned them on some podcast or something. And Chauncey started listening to them, and therefore I was hearing and play them. I was like, I really like this band too. So when we saw on the tour list that they were going to be in Detroit and Volbeat was going to be with them, I was like, oh, we're going to do Detroit as well. But Metallica's fan club, which is free to join. It used to be not the case. Chauncey was he joined back in the day when you had to pay to be part of it. Now anybody can join it for free. But on that leg of the tour, if you were a fan club member, if you had tickets to a show, you could enter to either win a meet and greet, or in that leg's case, the tickets to the Snake Pit, because these were all outdoor stadium shows at football fields and baseball stadiums. So the way the stage was set up is they had the stage that runs left to right like you would see, but then it also protrudes, and in that protrusion there's an opening and people could stand in there, and they call that the Snake Pit. So with Chicago we didn't win. And then Detroit, it was just Chauncey and I going to that show. And since we had tickets to the Detroit show, we entered again. And it was Chauncey's fan club entry that actually got pulled from the lottery. So we won Snake Pit for Detroit, which was really,
posted about
really cool. To literally be inside the stage, to be surrounded all the way around by the stage, and it was really cool. We saw Avenged Sevenfold again, which was cool, and to see Volbeat live, which was awesome. And then Metallica comes out, and it takes over, and it was just a 360, almost over sensory experience. One, because Metallica is it's cool to experience live, but then their shows are so, it's not just them standing up there singing. They show like clips from music videos up on the screen. They have this huge screen. They have pyro for some of the songs. They have other effects. They have like lasers and sound effects for some of their and strobe lights. It's definitely not a show you want to go to if you're sensitive to like strobe lights or anything. But
remember that part where they took that little girl that was down with her dad? They brought her up and let her play drums.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was towards the end, I think. Or maybe not, but they had a second drum set so that Lars could play drums in the protrusion part. So we were actually, once they moved up there, we were actually behind them. So we were staring at Lars's back. But there was a girl. How old was she? Because we found a clip or a news article or something. She was probably 7 or 8, probably.
Yeah.
But they plucked her out of the crowd. She had like the noise canceling headphones on, and they stuck her in Lars's seat and give her a couple of drumsticks and let her have at it before they played Seek and Destroy, I think.
Nice.
So,
Oh, that must have made her year.
yeah, yeah. If
She go back. She goes back to school. It's like I
yeah,
gotta play drums.
yeah.
And I got to play them.
Hopefully, she understood what a. I don't know if she's quite old enough to understand, but hopefully, when she gets older, she realizes how cool that was. So,
Yeah.
you know, at that age, they're old enough to somewhat at least appreciate the music because our nieces, Beth and Joe's girls, are Metallica fans, and they're 7 and 8. So Emma just had her birthday over the weekend, and we were up a couple weeks ago, and Beth was trying to figure out, you know, what kind of birthday party to throw for Emma, and Emma's like, I want a elephant watermelon painting Metallica party.
Nice.
That's what kind of birthday party she wanted. It's like, oh yeah, that's our girl.
One of the really neat things Metallica has recently done that is very like run a rock star-ish. There's a short documentary on YouTube about it. Was one of their early favorite albums was Master of Puppets, and they recorded that in this garage in San Francisco, and like that was basically a garage attached to a house that they were all living in at the same time, because they weren't a very like famous band and like by their third album, but they all just kind of like still were chugging along, and they were a touring band. And anyway, that garage got torn down, and luckily somebody that knew what it was, knew that the fact that was the garage that they wrote that album in, grabbed some of the lumber from it, and he was like, oh yeah, I was thinking about making something with it. And then James Hetfield said, well, heck, can I buy that off you? And they bought it off of him. And because originally what they wanted to do was actually relocate that garage into their headquarters now, so that they'd have the original shed in their studio in the same way. But so what they did instead, because they only had like a few pieces from it, was they took all the lumber and they gave it to their to Ken Lawrence, who's a luthier who makes guitars, and Ken built a Explorer style guitar for James, and it's made of the shed that they wrote Master Puppets in. So if you ever see him on stage and he's got a guitar that's got like nails and things hanging out of it, it's literally made of the shed.
Wow.
Between James and Kirk, they have quite the interesting guitar collection.
Yeah, they're very eccentric.
The way they look. Yeah, well, Kirk is big into like the old Universal monsters.
Yep.
So he has different ones with like, you know, Frankenstein's monster and Wolfman and stuff on them. So
Boris Karloff, The Mummy.
yes.
Yeah, I own a book called Too Much Horror Business, and it's this illustrated coffee table book from Kirk Hammett, the lead guitarist, and it's basically his fantasy and love with old horror films, and he has a huge collection of old costumes and masks and movie posters, and just from the heyday of Hollywood horror, from, you know, the Universal classic monsters all the way to foreign films that were of the same era. So really amazing that he's kept with that his whole life. He said as a kid he'd get as much money as he could from his milk money from school and go buy comic books, and that's where his like kind of love affair with, like, you know, sort of the odd and curious started to form, was with comic books, and, you know, reading the Crypt Keeper comic books and all those old things like that, and then getting into music that just transposed itself into the style of music that they play. So a lot of people equate their music to like science fiction or horror films. They even have songs they've written about aliens and stuff like that. Like it is sort of the sci-fi of music, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody have any questions about Metallica? I could ramble and ramble and ramble.
He'll keep rambling until we have to go to the show a week from now.
Now, I had a quick step away. What was your take on with the Napster? I thought that was,
Yeah, should we talk about the $10 million elephant in the room?
Sure, yeah. It comes up. It comes up in anytime they have a high profile interview, and I've studied it quite a bit because, like I said, I was a violator.
It's
right?
been almost 20 years, but
Yeah, and
the statute might be out, but you never know.
Well, even if it wasn't, Lars has basically said, he goes, I was not after people specifically. I was trying to make examples of people, but he's like, I'm paraphrasing,
and people act like it was just them that was part of this lawsuit. I mean, it was one of the high profile ones, but they weren't the only ones, because actually Dr. Dre was one of the other big artists that got after Napster for his music being up on there, without permission, essentially. So
I've always respected them for their courage as a band to be themselves and just like do things that they think make sense without having to have somebody else do it and have them fall. Like, they a lot of times will set the precedent for a lot of things they do in their art and also in the business, and this was just one of those examples, because like in a few interviews I've heard with Hetfield later on, he's like we were at like the Grammys, or we would be at like these events where like there'd be other bands. He's like, and people would, like, other bands would come up to us behind the scenes that were even bigger than us, like the Backstreet Boys or Britney Spears, and they'd say, we love what you're doing, keep doing it. And then they said they would reach out to him and say, like, well, join us, let's build like a coalition against pirating music. And they're like, no, we couldn't, our careers couldn't take it. So Metallica they kind of waved the flag for keeping the music industry as it was in the 90s, but as we all know, that all kind of fell to the ground.
Yeah. Well, I think it also was the whole peer-to-peer file sharing thing. I think really was just a sign of the times, and the internet age kind of getting to where it is now, where you can go to something like iTunes or Google and buy just a single song. You can play 30 seconds, a minute of it, see if you like it, and then buy it for 99 cents without having to buy an entire album.
Yeah, I mean, back then, late 90s, early 2000s, the internet, like, people were still trying to figure out what you can do with the internet, and what was even possible. And so that's what I kind of think like Napster came out of, was like, oh, hey, we can share music, because in our minds at the time, we're like, well, you record music off a cassette tape on the stereo, or you burn a CD or something like that. And it's like it just didn't click in our minds at the time. It's like that this is any different. And then that's when they're like, but wait, the artists or the musicians and stuff are like, well, wait a minute, this is still, we got to figure out something else, because we're not getting money for this. Well, then you end up with iTunes, and you end up with Google and Amazon and some of these others doing that. So it's like, yeah, back then we're like, well, what can we do with the internet? And then they're like, well, we can do this, but let's make sure there's that extra layer of, and I took a guitar class in college, and the professor was saying, like, he was glad that iTunes was around now, because he would assign certain songs, and some of them were like popular rock songs for us to learn. Like, I remember there was like some Kansas and some others that he had. And he's like, instead of having to go buy the whole cassette or the whole CD, because he'd been teaching for years and years, you could just go buy the one song and not have to pay quite so much, which was nice for college students. So it's like, yeah. So it's for the better.
Yeah. There's growing pains, is what it was.
That's all. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, piracy obviously is still a thing, although it's not. I don't know so much music is pirated these days. It's TV shows and movies.
Yeah, but in one big TV series.
Yeah, there's a reason
particular.
Game of Thrones has the title of most pirated TV show ever. So
Lars was an emboldened businessman, and he took the hit for, I think, the entire industry. And the hit was the fact that he stood out with confidence as a rich musician, essentially saying, this is not right, our entire industry, the bottom's going to fall out of it. And it did. There are musicians today that are in the metal genre who complain that the only way that they can possibly make money is to play live concerts. So you have no choice but to write maybe an album every 5 years and then tour with that, and you don't make any money with the album, so that's all free work. And then you make all your money from ticket sales.
well, and then I can't speak for other places around the country, but here in Indianapolis, we have one radio station that you can hear Metallica on, and it's not anything new. It's all like Nothing Else Matters, and they're saying, man, it's all going to be stuff that's 10 to 15 years old. We had another radio station that used to be the alt rock, the hard rock station, and they used to participate in mandatory Metallica. When Chauncey and I first got together, that was the thing. And it was across the country, radio stations at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock or something like that at night played 2 Metallica songs. And it was across the country. And then the one radio station changed their format. They still call themselves Indies Alternative. They play Mumford and Sons. That is not alternative rock. That is not hard rock. I'm sorry. So we have all we have now is Q95, which is a classic rock station. So they're not going to play anything new. So if you want to hear Metallica on the radio, you have to keep it on Q95, and maybe the one of 3 or 4 Metallica songs that they have in their rotation will come on. So they're not being played on the radio, at least here in Indianapolis, as far as I know.
I don't think it's any different here either. I mean, I don't really listen to the radio anymore just because I can't stand ads. And I've gotten to the point where I have all the music I want to listen to on my phone, and I listen to audiobooks, which is a different thing. But with streaming, and like Chauncey, you mentioned your cousin, or he listens to Metallica on Sirius XM, and I think people are just kind of getting away from radio, listening to radio anyway. They can listen to it, they can buy the music they want on iTunes, or they can listen to it on YouTube or Pandora, or any streaming site that you want to name, Spotify, and all those others, and they all have you have
dedicated
access to
stations.
all this stuff. Yeah. It's like, because when I would listen to the radio, there was always like 2 or 3 songs that would come on that I just could not stand for whatever reason. Entirely. So, we're talking about, Napster and the internet and how things have kind of changed. Like it's I mean, that's just going to be a thing until, I don't know. I don't know. It's all
so they can beam it directly to our head,
Yes, exactly.
Well, also, beyond the music, there's a cultural thing to Metallica that's really interesting to me that's probably only popped up in the last 20 years as their career's gone on. By the way, they're going to be a 40-year-old band in 2021. So they're not young. I mean, this is a band that in our lifetimes will probably fall apart, unfortunately. I'm preparing myself for that.
Well, hopefully it won't be falling apart, but they'll graciously retire.
Yeah, something like that.
And not retire, 12 times like Cher has.
Well, I mean,
or the Stones, but then the Stones has a good run.
Yeah. I guess what I'm getting at is Metallica beyond the music. Like there's been controversy with one of the Jenners wearing a Metallica T-shirt, and Metallica fans saying you're not a real Metallica fan, and then all of a sudden like a generation.
That sounds like comic book culture.
Yeah, right. A generation of fans of the Jenners, like those young girls started wearing Metallica T-shirts, and they didn't really know what they were. Justin Bieber started wearing Metallica T-shirts, and it's become iconic to see the logo for Metallica with kind of the jutted out M and A on the ends with the kind of razor sharp edges and things. So people that don't even, like teenagers that don't even really know the band, they just know the logo and stuff. And I have a cooler that says Metallica on it. You know, it's like, what? This is a garage band. Why do I have a cooler? You know, and there's
Because they
people
were
that-
selling it and you bought it.
Well, yeah, I'm a fan of theirs. So my point is, you can go on Instagram and you can follow like lifestyle threads that are all Metallica, and they have very little to do with the music, clothing and cars, and very different nowadays on with social media involved, and what it's all about. And there's like an entire fan art culture dedicated to Metallica. It has nothing to do with their music. It's just the attitude of the band and their art.
That's like the shirt you bought me for Christmas. Yeah, it's a parody essentially, but it's still, you know, it's influenced by Metallica. So
It says "Master of Puppies," and it's a bunch of.
it's a bunch of corgis.
Corgis.
And it's the master of puppets. If you've ever looked at the cover art for Master of Puppets, where it's like Metallica and it's a field of crosses, all on strings.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, instead of the crosses, it's full of corgis, and in the Metallica font, it says corgi. And it says Master of Puppies.
Nice.
Like there's now like hunting equipment because James Hetfield is a big hunter. There's hunting equipment that's Metallica branded. He has a guitar that's branded to Argali camouflage, which is a specific type of camouflage for hunters. And it's really weird how these worlds collide, and it's just based on this sort of I don't know, cultural success story known as American garage band called Metallica. And even for every concert they play now, they put a call out to artists in the local area, and you are to create a poster, and if you get accepted, it'll be included into the show art. So as you're watching, like in Indianapolis here coming up, Rachel and I will see art that we've never seen before projected up on their stage show, and it'll be created by local Indianapolis artists. So it's
Sweet.
quite a bit of art eccentricism, being eccentric and sort of inclusive in terms of how they act now. They also have this really awesome foundation now called All Within My Hands Foundation, and it's all about building up money to buy local school instruments. So it's like the idea of extracurricular music classes in schools not being able to survive. They're just like buying instruments to make sure that continues to happen. So.
They actually the foundation does a number of things. That's just one of them right now with the World Wired tour, which is the tour that they're on, both in the U.S. and overseas. Every stop they have made a $10,000 donation to a local food bank, and then they've created a scholarship too. So they've picked 10 colleges from across the country. They're going to receive $100,000 for students entering the workforce, and those students become Metallica scholars.
Isn't that crazy?
It's cool. It's very cool. Yeah. Well, let's finish up here with, we'll wrap up here with some facts and figures, courtesy of Wikipedia. So, MTV has ranked Metallica the third greatest heavy metal band in history. They're ranked 42nd on VH1's 100 Greatest Artists of All Time, 5th on VH1's 100 Greatest Artists of Hard Rock. They're number 1 on VH1's 20 Greatest Metal Bands list. Rolling Stone has placed the band 61st on its list of 100 Greatest Artists of All Time. The album Master Puppets and Metallica, which is the Black Album, are ranked numbers 167 and 252 on Rolling Stone's magazine's list of the 500 Greatest Albums of All Time. Master Puppets was named Q Magazine's named in Q Magazine's 50 Heaviest Albums of All Time is ranked number 1 in IGN's Top 25 Metal Albums, number 1 on MetalRules.com's Top 100 Heavy Metal Albums list, and Enter Sandman is ranked number 399 on Rolling Stone's 500 Greatest Songs of All Time. And their discography includes 10 studio albums, 5 live albums, 3 EPs, 39 singles, 10 video albums, 41 music videos, 1 soundtrack, 1 collaboration album, and 3 box sets.
Wow.
Oh, geez, that collaboration album.
Yeah, we're not. Notice at no point we have bothered to bring up Lulu until now.
It sounds like Grandpa Simpson with Metallica.
They did a collaboration with Lou Reed before he passed, and it's Lou Reed. It's a Lou Reed album, is what it is. It's Lou Reed, and Metallica happens to be part of it. It is not a Metallica album with Lou Reed. It's the other way around.
Gotcha.
Oh,
What's your favorite Metallica song? Anybody?
Oh boy.
I only really. Oh, go ahead, Holly.
I'd have to go 1.
One.
That's a good one.
I only really know Enter Sandman. Oh,
I think mine actually Master Puppets. I always like that one.
I think mine's Orion. There's no singing in it, but it's all instrumental. That's probably my favorite of all.
My favorite depends on what mood I'm in.
that is true.
It depends. It really depends. It also depends on whether you're listening to an album, or if you're talking live. Like, One is really amazing live. It's a 4D experience with them performing One. Fuel is really good, both live and album. If you're talking, kind of older stuff. One of my favorite songs, which they don't perform live, it was a new song for S&M, and it's the only time they've ever performed it is No Leaf Clover. That's one of my favorites. I wish they would pull out of the archives, but that'll probably stay just S&M only, probably. And then
Are people that when you were to ask the question, when has James his voice ever been recorded the best in a performance, they say it's No Leaf Clover on the S&M album.
Yeah. If you want a good cross section of Metallica and what they can sound like, if you've not listened to a lot of their stuff, listen to S&M. It's a good starter because it is not in your face heavy metal. Having that orchestra helps, if you're dipping your toe into the water with that. And then actually on the current tour, at least one of my favorites, well, I like it off of the album too, off of Hardwired, is have a complete brain fart. Now That We're Dead. Yeah, with the giant drums. That's really cool. They bring out these giant drums and they all play them.
Oh, neat.
The kind of like what you see, if you've ever seen Japanese play the big drums with the sticks.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that, and all 4 of them play these big old drums during the bridge, and it's very awesome. So,
nice. Chauncey, got a question for you. Favorite song that Metallica's covered?
Oh, Turn the Page by Bob Seger. Yeah.
Cool. That's mine, and then Whiskey in the Jar.
Oh yeah, that's so good.
Mm-hmm.
Metallica is such a good cover band too.
Yes.
They released a cover album in the 80s and then one in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Garage Incorporated. So good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Turn the
poster
Page
is right behind me.
Turn the Page, James Hetfield actually said, because the Bob Seger version is what it is, but the people really love the Turn the Page Metallica did, and they asked him about it in an interview, and he said, yeah, that's a song I wish I would have written.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which I like their version
Mm-hmm.
better than the original.
I mean, Seeger's is good, but you can hear the lyrics more in Metallica's version
Yeah.
and get more meaning behind it.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, like there's a part of that song where he says like walks into because the song's all about touring and like
Yep.
being on the road, and it's like he walks into a restaurant and he gets the same old comments. Is that a woman or a man?
Because of long hair.
Long
Yep.
hair. And they dealt with that kind of stuff in the 80s because there was like trucker culture still around, and they had interviews about that. Like Metallica in the 80s, as young kids, they had no other income other than just to tour with a U-Haul van. They just all live in the back of the U-Haul van and drive around and tour. So, you get kind of a lot of angst towards society when they treat you like that, and they were just punk kids.
Cool. Whoops. I dropped stuff. Anything else? I know Chauncey could keep going, but...
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me on. A lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
This is good.
Anytime.
Yes.
I said it's one of those serendipitous things. Like we're seeing them in a week. It happens to be Jason Christ's birthday.
There you go.
20-year anniversary of my favorite album. So
Fingers crossed, maybe that song will get pulled for you.
yeah. Well, they did do a tour, like a mini tour several years ago when they were in between albums, or it was like fans could like tweet or go on the website or something and vote for songs to go on the set list. And occasionally a deep cut did get, they gave them like a short list they could vote from. So it's like you couldn't vote for just anything. But every now and then something, deep would get voted on, and they would throw it in the set list. But for the most part, their set list is, if they're promoting a new album, which they still are with this album for Hardwired Self-Destruct, which came out a couple of years ago, but they're still on that tour promoting this album. So their set list is songs from whatever album it is they're promoting, and then pretty much all the rest of them are pretty standard. You hear the same songs every single time. So there are a few that I would not mind them plucking out and replacing with something. We were actually talking about that recently, I think, when we were in the car, talking about the set list and what changes we'd make. And there's like because we were listening to some of their music, and I kind of like them because I don't think they have done it in the 3 times I've seen them yet. I haven't seen them perform Ride the Lightning live. That's one I kind of wish that they would pop it back into the set list and pull out something like four Horsemen. You could pluck that out and put Ride the Lightning in there, and I'd be happy.
I do have a parting story here for you. So it's very much Metallica related. So I was in California with work we were in San Francisco in 2015, and we had a free day because our meeting fell through for the day. So we had a rental car and a whole day to do whatever the heck we wanted in San Francisco. So I looked at one of the other dudes that was with us, and I said, "Hey, you want to go see Skywalker Ranch, don't you?" And he's like, "Heck yeah!" So I was like, "All right, well, do me a favor." I said, "Let's make an itinerary, and we're gonna hit up a few places." And then this other guy joined in, and he goes, "Oh, if you guys are going up in that area, I need you to drop me off at my friend's house." And we're like, "Okay." So this turned out to be the most amazing day I think I've had at work ever. So we get in this van and we go to Bill's friend's house, whose name is Dave, and we have no idea who Dave is. And this guy invites us in, and I'm like petting his dog and like hanging out with him, and I'm like, "Yeah, we're gonna go." We're talking to him. He serves us lemonade.
Hold that thought. Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
And so Dave has us in, we chat, and whatever. I pet his dog, and we drink lemonade and talk for a while. And I said, we're gonna go see Skywalker Ranch and just like the front gate and take a picture, and then we're gonna go down the way. And James Hetfield from Metallica owns a house over here, and he goes, "Oh yeah," he's like, he's that rocker guy, right? I'm like, yeah. He goes, "He's got such a weird style." I'm like, "Yeah, doesn't his front gate have a couple of like statues of Indians with sunglasses on?" He's like, "Yeah, that guy is weird." So we get in the car and we drive to Skywalker Ranch. There's 2 entrances, so we stop at both and we take the pictures there. And we didn't act like Sheldon. We didn't get arrested or anything.
No restraining order.
Yeah. We're driving around Marin County, and this place is beautiful. I'm like, dude, turn off on this dirt road. We're gonna see if we can like go find a hillside where we can look down on Skywalker Ranch. And we didn't find that. We basically left there, and we did find James Hetfield's ranch. So we took a picture in front of the gate there that was all gated up, but the statues of the Indians were there. And then I'm like, all right, let's keep going because their Metallica headquarters is just down here south of this area. So we drove down, and it's an unmarked building in this industrial park zone. And we get there, and James Hetfield's hot rod's parked in the back, and we can hear drumming, and we're like, this is awesome. So I go walking around to the other side, and there's like a lumber company next door, and I like put my ear right up to the side of Metallica's building, and I could hear the drumming and the guitar inside, and they were working on the album Hardwired. And I didn't know at the time what they were writing, but I could tell that they were in there working on something. And then what's crazy is later on that evening, Bill shows back up for dinner, and because he rode the ferry over after he ate lunch with his friend Dave, and we picked him up on the other side of the bay, and we're like, so Bill, who was that guy that you dropped us off, or we dropped you off at? His house was huge. He goes, oh, that's Dave Goles. I'm like, who the heck's that? And he's like, yeah, he's like Gonzo from the Muppets, and like who are the other characters he does? Like several of the Muppets. He's the actual Muppeteer. I was like, what?
Wow.
That's cool.
Yeah, I had no idea. We were just like drinking lemonade and hanging out with his dog and him in his living room.
And then Lewis had Dave on his podcast since then, hasn't he?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It's a small world after.
It's the craziest day, the coolest day I've ever had at work.
Yeah, James's hot rods are very distinctive, so it's like there's no mistaking that that was his car.
No, I knew what it was. It was the Iron Fist. It's a car that's not painted. It's just stainless steel on the outside.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. This is like this is Chauncey fanboying with the fighters.
We all have our thing. That's why this podcast exists.
I'll just say it. I'll just say it right now. Squee.
There you go.
No,
Exactly.
but if you're gonna do that, you have to say it like James Hetfield. Squee.
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 Yeah.
One of us.
Yes. We're here to squee. What else?
Oh yeah, that joke that Rachel said at the top of the show is an inside joke from if you watch the behind the scenes on the Symphony of Metallica VHS. There's like these drunk people out waiting to get into the show, and the camera turns on them and they go, "We're here for Metallica. What else?"
So that's our thing.
Yeah. So we just say that.
Nice.
If we're going at the grocery store buying groceries, like we're here from Metallica. What else?
Oh man. Well, if any of our readers are here for Metallica, what else? and want to send in feedback. That is not my most charming or smooth transition,
Segue.
but it'll do.
Yeah.
Segue. If you want to send in feedback, email us at fiveishfangirls@gmail.com. And our website is the5ishfangirls.com, and there you can find links to all of our social media and where you can leave comments and like us on Facebook, and you can like us on Instagram, and we're on YouTube and Twitter And where are we else? iTunes. We also have a Patreon page where you can support us and also support us through our Amazon store and our Redbubble store. You can get Five-ish Fangirls merchandise. And thank you to everyone who has supported us in any of those ways. And even if you're just on our Facebook page and leaving us comments and likes and stuff, thanks again. And so check us out, write into us, and let us know what you think, or on Metallica or anything else we've ever talked about on the show.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And speaking of said Metallica show, just a heads up, next week our show will be a little delayed because Chauncey and I will be at Metallica when we would normally be recording.
Oh, fine. That's your excuse.
So the show will be a little delayed, but for any of our listeners that want to join in the conversation, that next week this does buy you a little more time to go see Captain Marvel.
And a little more time for Rachel's voice to recover, because I'm sure she's probably going to be singing along and yelling and cheering.
That too. I try not to scream too much, but I do tend to sing along very loudly. So,
You should.
Yes.
Yeah. So that does buy you a little more time if you can't go see Captain Marvel right away when it opens this week, because the red carpet is happening right now. I have it on with the volume turned all the way down, obviously, but Lee Pace just walked away. So
can we go see Captain Marvel and the Apollo 11 IMAX film?
Sure, we'll make it a double header.
Let's do it.
If that's a thing. Oh, look, Clark Gregg! Yay! I'm not even in Salt Lake City. He'll be in your neck of the woods soon, Chrissy.
Well, you could come bunk over. We have a couch.
We were discussing that before you joined us. When you listen to the show back, you'll hear all about me planning on stalking Clark Gregg. Maybe.
It's in April next month. You got time to plan it.
I know. Anyway, with that, we shall sign off for this week.
This is Brittany in Bethlehem saying goodnight.
This is Chrissy saying goodnight from Salt Lake City.
This is Sally from Wisconsin saying good evening.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana, in the words of the immortal James Hetfield. Yeah.
This is Chauncey from Rachel's living room saying, yeah.
You have been listening to the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. You can find more episodes and information at thefivishfangirls.com. Any and all books, movies, games, and any other forms of media mentioned are owned and operated by the respective copyright holders. No copyright infringement is intended or implied. If you wish to support the show, the easiest way is to leave us a rating and review on iTunes. More ratings and reviews will make it easier for others to find the show. If you wish to support us monetarily, you can do so at patreon.com/5ishfangirlspodcast. All money goes towards fees and equipment to keep the show going. For official Five-ish Fangirls merchandise, visit redbubble.com/people/5ishfangirls. We love hearing from our listeners and encourage feedback. You can email us at fiveishfangirls@gmail.com. You can also like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/5ishfangirls. Thank you so much for listening, and may the squee be with you.